The stars outside the observation windows of the Veritas shimmered like cold diamonds in the dark. The ship floated silently in the Andromeda sector, far from any inhabited world. Inside, the air hummed with quiet tension. Delegates from across the galaxy moved through the polished halls, robes rustling, translators buzzing softly at their sides. Commander Jax Voss stood alone at the central viewing chamber, hands clasped behind his back. He was tall, with skin the color of copper metal and eyes like still water. His expression was calm, thoughtful, and tired. He had seen 1,000 species rise and fall, but today's mission held more weight than most. Today, they would decide Earth's future. Earth, a small, stubborn world full of contradiction, brilliant and brutal, creative and cruel. Its people had launched themselves into space centuries ago, only to be placed under quarantine by the Galactic Concord. Their violence, once recorded, had shaken even the most hardened races. But now, Earth was back, pleading for a seat among the stars. The Council had agreed to a final review, and that was why they were here. Jax turned as the doors slid open. The first delegate entered, a pale, spindly creature with crystal skin that shimmered blue under the lights. Behind it walked a slug-like being on a levitating pad, its eyes blinking slowly. More followed, beings of gas, metal, water, and flesh. Dozens of species, each carrying the weight of their own histories. They moved quietly, uncertain about what they were about to see. A smaller door opened at the side. Counselor Drexler stepped in with his usual cold grace. He was tall and sharp-featured, his robe stiff and black. His expression was unreadable, but his presence alone sent a chill through the room. Drex was the chief security officer of the Concord, a man known for never bending once his mind was made up. Commander Voss, Drex said with a short nod. Counselor, Jax replied, keeping his tone neutral. Drex looked around the room, his eyes pausing on the holographic screen at the center. You truly believe this is worth our time? Jax gave a quiet sigh. Understanding always is. Drex made no reply, simply walked to his seat among the high-ranking officials. The rest of the council settled in. The lights dimmed slightly. A soft chime rang out. The session was beginning. A holographic sphere floated into the air, flickering gently as it loaded the archives. The footage inside had been carefully selected, documented human conflicts over thousands of years. The council had requested raw truth. No edits. No filters. They would see Earth as it was, and as it had been. Jack stepped forward and addressed the room. Honored council members, we are gathered today to complete the review of Earth's historical record. What you are about to witness is not pleasant. It is violent, chaotic, and deeply human. But it is not the whole story, it is a part of it. A species must be known in full before it is judged. He paused. No one spoke. Even Drex stayed silent. The footage will begin with what Earth calls its Second World War, Jack said. A global conflict resulting in over 70 million deaths. You may stop the viewing at any point. You may leave, though your vote will still be required. He stepped back. The sphere brightened, and the war began. Black and white footage filled the air, grainy images of tanks rolling through ruined cities, fighter planes cutting through smoke-filled skies, men running through trenches, shouting orders, falling. The delegates leaned forward, their eyes wide, their bodies still. Explosions lit up the chamber. A mushroom cloud rose slowly in the center of the sphere. No one spoke. A minute passed. Then two. The room stayed silent except for the hum of the projector and the distant sound of war echoing through the speakers. Jax remained motionless. This was only the beginning. There was still so much more to see, and so much more to feel. The chamber stayed dim as the footage shifted. The monochrome chaos of World War II faded into color, more modern, more brutal. Scenes from the late 20th and early 21st centuries played now, each one more disturbing than the last. A city skyline flashed on the screen. Moments later, the towers collapsed in clouds of fire and dust. Sirens blared. People ran through the streets, covered in ash. Then came deserts lit by flashes of artillery, streets torn apart by bombings, and drones silently flying above villages. Precision strikes, the humans called them. But the screams suggested otherwise. A delegate from the Vunari species, known for their peaceful culture, covered her large silver eyes. She whispered something in her native tongue, her voice trembling. Her translator stuttered out a simple word. Why? The footage didn't slow. More scenes came, crowds protesting in the streets, soldiers in body armor marching through city squares, a child holding a sign that read, "Please don't shoot." Then came another explosion, this time in a market. Smoke. Screams. Silence. Commander Jax Voss watched the council closely. He had seen this footage many times before, studied every detail. He was not shocked anymore. But watching others see it for the first time always left a knot in his chest. The hologram showed night vision raids, green-tinted footage of soldiers bursting into homes, pulling people from their beds. An old man tried to speak, hands raised, before he was thrown to the ground. A mother clutched her baby as shouting filled the air. The screen cut to black, then to a press conference where leaders justified the operation. A sharp gasp broke the silence. It came from a delegate with translucent skin and glowing nerves, a member of the Ixari, a species that had outlawed violence for over 1,000 years. His hands trembled. His translator buzzed weakly. "These are real? Not simulations." "They are real," Jack said quietly. "All of it is history." Another voice spoke, sharp and cold. "And you still defend them?" All eyes turned to Counselor Drexthar. He sat tall, his expression hard. "They bomb their own cities," he said. "They develop weapons to destroy entire populations. This is not evolution. This is savagery." Jax didn't reply right away. He stepped forward, facing the council. "They are not perfect," he said. "No species is. You all have histories, 2 wars, mistakes, cruelty. We chose to learn from it. Why not let them do the same?" Drex stood. "They glorify war. They make films about it. They honor it in statues. Even now, their stories are soaked in violence. This is not a culture healing, it is a culture addicted." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Delegates turned to one another, uncertain. A few nodded in agreement with Drex. Others looked away, clearly disturbed but not yet ready to judge. The footage kept playing faster now. Footage of modern war zones. Streets flooded with rubble. Hospitals struck by accident. Armored vehicles crushing cars. Journalists running with cameras, their voices shaking as gunfire echoed around them. Then came the footage of children. Jax tensed. He hated this part. A school with shattered windows. Desks overturned. Blood on the floor. A girl no older than 10, crying quietly in the corner as soldiers passed by. A boy carrying his wounded brother through the smoke. Something in the room broke. A delegate stood up quickly, an insectoid creature from the Mechari Republic. Her wings buzzed in distress. She made a sharp clicking sound and walked out without a word. Then another stood, and another. One by one, they left the chamber, unable to continue. Some looked sick. Others just looked heartbroken. Halfway through the footage, 12 members had walked out. 5 others sat with eyes closed, heads lowered. And then, the formal resignations began. A tall, shadowed being from the Zari collective stood and faced Jax. "I will not be part of this," he said simply. "If these creatures are to join the Concord, I will not remain in it." He placed his symbol of office on the floor and walked away. 3 others followed. The room felt colder now. Jax looked at Drex. The counselor's expression didn't change, but the slightest trace of victory touched his voice. "How many must leave before you admit the truth?" Drex asked. Jax turned his gaze to the screen. It showed a woman pulling a stranger from burning wreckage. Blood stained her face, but she smiled with relief as she dragged the man to safety. He looked back at Drex and said softly, "They don't just destroy. They save too." But no one responded. The lights remained dim. The footage continued. And the future of Earth hung in silence. The chamber had changed. Where there was once quiet curiosity and polite diplomacy, there was now discomfort, tension, and fear. The council room aboard the Veritas felt colder, not from any change in temperature, but from the mood of those inside. The once proud circle of delegates now seemed smaller. Dozens of seats stood empty, the symbols of resignation left neatly behind like gravestones. The footage did not pause. New images filled the holographic sphere, scenes from more recent decades. Modern warfare. Urban conflicts. Skirmishes in dense cities with drones, satellites, and artificial intelligence guiding precision strikes. The screens flashed with night battles, air raids, and camera feeds from missiles just seconds before impact. A child was pulled from a pile of rubble. A woman screamed as soldiers dragged her son away. Bodies covered in blankets lined a dusty street. Soldiers walked past, rifles raised, faces blank. Each scene struck like a blow. Commander Jax Voss stood still in the center, his hands behind his back, eyes fixed forward. He knew what they were all feeling: confusion, disgust, and disbelief. He had once felt it too. But he had also seen what the footage didn't always show: what came after. He still believed that mattered. From across the room, a soft metallic clang echoed. A delegate from the Lauren Unity, whose people had once waged war across 3 galaxies, removed his ceremonial chain and placed it gently on his seat. "I will not witness more," he said quietly. His voice was heavy, almost mournful. "We gave up our violence long ago. I do not wish to remember it." He walked out. Another followed, a blue-skinned diplomat whose species spoke only through light patterns on their chest. Their translator gave a single word before they left: unforgivable. The council chamber, once filled with voices and motion, was growing silent. Tense. Fragile. Counselor Drexler remained seated, unmoved. His face was calm, his voice sharp. "This is what they are. Not what they were, Commander. This is their present." He turned to the remaining council members, his voice rising slightly. "You have seen enough. The humans do not stumble into violence. They return to it, again and again. They build monuments to war. They turn every conflict into celebration. This is not the pain of a people learning. This is the pride of a people who refuse to change." Some nodded. Others looked down. Jax finally stepped forward. His voice was steady, but firm. "You see their worst moments and call it their truth. But the truth is more complicated." Drex scoffed. "They kill children. They also save them," Jax said quickly. "They mourn. They protest. They speak out. The same species that dropped bombs also cured diseases, ended genocides, and stood between tanks with nothing but hope in their hands." He turned, slowly facing each delegate that remained. "You must see the whole of them, not just the blood. Look at what they've done in the aftermath of war. Look at their recovery. Their rebuilding. They do not glorify all violence. They wrestle with it. They try to contain it. They pass laws. They protest in the streets. They cry for peace louder than they cry for battle." The hologram shifted. Now it showed candlelight vigils, protests for peace, wounded soldiers hugging former enemies, human children planting trees on ground once scorched by bombs, an old man embracing a refugee child at a border fence, a young woman facing down a riot squad with a single flower in her hand. There was a pause in the room. Then, unexpectedly, a voice came from the side. It was soft, shaky. "I don't know what to think anymore." All turned to see a young alien analyst, barely an adult in her species, standing near the back. Her skin shimmered like glass in the chamber light. "I started this session thinking they were monsters," she continued. "But now, I see they're more than that. They're terrible, but they're also brave. They break things, but they fix them too." Drex looked at her, eyes narrowed. Naivete is dangerous. Jax, however, offered a small nod of thanks. The footage stopped. Jax walked to the center of the room, voice clear and quiet. "I don't ask you to excuse them. I ask you to see them fully. They have caused pain, yes, but they are learning. And isn't that what every intelligent race does? Learn, change, become better." Silence followed. Then, a soft mechanical chime echoed through the chamber. A message flashed on the screen. Session paused for council deliberation. Remaining members requested to prepare statements. Drex stood first. "I will prepare mine. I already know what it will say." He exited the room without another word. Jack stayed behind, his gaze resting on the holographic sphere now faded to a quiet glow. Behind him, only a handful of delegates remained. He didn't know what they would decide, but for the first time, he believed they had truly seen humanity. And that mattered. The chamber was quiet. The air felt heavy, like the silence after a storm. Commander Jax Voss stood in the center, motionless. Around him, only a few delegates remained, scattered across the circular room. Many seats were empty now, some from resignation, others from fear or confusion. The holographic sphere hovered above the floor, its glow dimmed, waiting. Then Jax gave a small signal to the projection unit. "Resume playback," he said. The sphere brightened again, but this time, it didn't show war. It began with a man kneeling in the middle of a protest, arms raised in peace as riot police approached. Behind him, a crowd held signs. "We are one. No more blood. Peace is power." Then the scene changed. Volunteers pulled survivors from collapsed buildings after earthquakes and bombings. They had no weapons, no uniforms, just hands, sweat, and determination. Some carried children. Others stayed behind in dangerous zones to help strangers they'd never met. Hospitals, refugee camps, schools rebuilt by communities who had nothing left but hope. "You've seen their violence," Jack said softly. "Now see their mercy." Footage showed human doctors treating the wounded from all sides of a war, refusing to take sides. Firefighters forming human chains to rescue animals trapped in burning forests. Strangers feeding one another during famine, even when they had little for themselves. One scene showed a group of people forming a circle around a frightened child caught between two clashing groups. They protected her with their bodies until the chaos passed. When it did, they stayed, hugging the child, shielding her eyes from the smoke. A delegate from the Pleener species leaned forward, blinking slowly. His voice, when it came, was rough with emotion. They feel compassion, deeply. Jax nodded. Yes. And guilt. Regret. They carry the weight of what they've done. Another scene appeared, a city once destroyed by war, now green with trees and gardens. Children laughed as they played in a park where tanks once stood. Plaques described the history, but also the healing. We remember so we don't repeat. They teach peace, Jax continued. To children. In schools. In songs. In stories. They do not forget their darkness, but many of them fight it every day. He paused and looked at the remaining council members. I am not showing you this to erase what you've seen before. I am showing it because both truths exist at once. Humanity is not one thing. There are many things. And they are trying. The sphere shifted again. This time, it showed a moment in space, humans aboard a station reaching out to aliens for the first time. No weapons. Just a handshake. A translator device. Smiles. Then a human child reading stories to an alien orphan in a refugee center on Mars. Laughter between beings who had no words in common, just shared time and kindness. In one last clip, a human woman stood at a podium, tears in her eyes. We are not perfect, she said. We've made terrible mistakes. But we are learning. We must learn, or we won't survive. Please, give us the chance to grow. The footage ended. Silence returned. Jax turned slowly, facing the council again. His voice was quiet but firm. You've seen two sides. One is full of pain. The other is full of promise. Both are real. And both are human. A long pause followed. Then a soft light blinked at the corner of the chamber. A signal. Someone wanted to speak. It was the young analyst from before, the one with shimmering skin. She stepped forward hesitantly, voice soft but clear. When the footage started, I was afraid, she said. They looked like monsters. I thought, they should be left behind. She looked at Jax. But now I see something else. I see that they hate what they've done. They cry for peace. They fight for it. Some of them die for it. Her eyes moved across the room. I don't know everything yet. But I know this. They're not just a danger. They're also a chance. Jax gave her a nod of respect. She stepped back, cheeks glowing faintly with emotion. The other delegates looked at one another, unsure. Doubt still lingered. But something had shifted. The anger was fading. The fear was softening. A question was forming in their minds. What if they're worth saving? Counselor Drexler was not in the room. He had chosen not to return for this part of the session. He didn't want to see what came after the flames. But the ones who stayed had seen it. The council chamber dimmed again as the sphere powered down. The screen read, Final arguments now open. The next session would determine everything. Jax inhaled deeply. The worst was over. Now came the part that mattered most. The council chamber on the Veritas was quiet, but it was no longer cold. The air still carried the weight of what had been shown. Burning cities, falling buildings, children crying in smoke-filled streets. But now, something else lingered too. Hope. Commander Jax Voss stood in the center of the circular hall. Around him, the remaining delegates sat in silence. Some leaned forward, elbows on knees, deep in thought. Others stared into the empty space where the holographic sphere had hovered. Their expressions were no longer blank or afraid. They were searching, thinking. Jax had shown them both sides of humanity. Now he had one last task. He had to speak. A soft chime echoed through the chamber. The system had activated final arguments. Each representative would now present their closing thoughts before the final vote. But Jax had asked to speak first. He stepped forward, his voice clear and calm. You've seen everything, he said. You've seen the worst of them. You've seen war, cruelty, and destruction. You've seen humans harm each other in ways that made some of you walk out. And I understand that. I really do. He looked around the room slowly, his eyes resting on each delegate. But I asked you to stay so you could see the other side, the part of them that rises after they fall. The part that reaches out, not with weapons, but with open hands. He took a breath. I won't lie to you. Earth is still changing. They still make mistakes. They still argue, still struggle with old ideas and old anger. But they are not who they used to be. Many of them don't want war anymore. They want peace, they want to learn, and they want to grow. He paused, then added with more weight in his voice. Can we say that about every species in this chamber? Did we all get it right the first time? The room stayed quiet. One delegate shifted uncomfortably. Another lowered her eyes. Jax continued. We all have histories we try to forget. Atrocities buried in the dust of time. But we were given chances, by others, or by luck, or by time. Earth is asking for that same chance. He turned slowly to face the council's main podium, where the final vote would be cast. They're not asking for weapons, or territory, or power. They are asking for a seat, for a place, for a chance to belong. A soft hum filled the room. It was not from a machine. It came from the quiet sound of shifting emotions, the subtle noise of minds changing. Then the sound was broken by a voice. Counselor Drexler had returned. He entered the chamber with slow, heavy steps. His dark robes trailed behind him like a shadow. His face was still, but his eyes were sharp. He walked directly to the floor and looked at Jax. You've spoken well, Commander, he said. But you are mistaken. Jax didn't move. Drex turned to the council. You believe they are learning, that they deserve a place among us. But what happens when their anger returns? When the wrong leader rises? When their peace breaks and their weapons point outward instead of in? He stepped closer to the center, his voice growing louder. I have watched species fall before. I have seen what happens when mercy outweighs caution, and I will not let that happen again. He paused, then added with quiet force, this is not fear. It is wisdom. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Jax answered, his voice low but certain. Fear feels like wisdom, but it is not. It keeps us safe, yes, but it also keeps us alone. He faced Drex fully now. You want to protect the galaxy. I respect that. But locking Earth away forever is not protection. It is punishment, and it teaches nothing. He turned back to the council. If we reject them without hope, we prove that we've learned nothing ourselves. Silence followed. A long, deep silence. Then, the central platform lit up. The vote had begun. Each delegate placed their hand, tendril, claw, or signal onto the panel before them. Lights blinked across the circle. Each vote recorded in silence. Jax did not watch them. He simply stood still, heart steady. He had said everything he could. The outcome now belonged to them. The chamber lights dimmed. Only the soft glow of the voting platform remained, casting pale light over the delegates' faces. The air was still, tense, as if even the ship itself was holding its breath. Commander Jax Voss stood motionless at the center of the hall, hands clasped behind his back. He didn't turn to watch the votes being cast. He knew better. Watching wouldn't change the outcome. It would only raise his hopes or crush them too early. One by one, the delegates submitted their decisions. A pulse of light traveled from each seat to the center of the chamber, forming a ring around the base of the holographic projector. As each vote was registered, the ring grew brighter, rotating slowly. No words were spoken. No expressions revealed anything. Even Drexler sat still, arms crossed, eyes fixed ahead like a statue. Finally, the last light blinked. The vote was complete. The chamber fell into deep silence. The holographic sphere reactivated, but this time it did not show war or peace. It showed a simple image, a blue and green planet, small in the blackness of space. Earth. The ship's system spoke in a neutral voice. Final decision recorded. Results sealed for private council review. Jax exhaled, quietly. That meant the verdict had been reached, but not yet announced. He stepped back from the center and walked to a side alcove. It was a quiet area, away from the main ring, where speakers often waited for announcements. He sat down on a bench made of polished stone and leaned forward, elbows on his knees, gaze on the floor. His mind was quiet, but not calm. Memories drifted through him, not just from the footage, but from his years studying Earth. The time he spent reading their books, watching their films, speaking to human scientists, artists, and children through diplomatic channels. The laughter he heard, the pain, the endless curiosity. He remembered one human boy who asked him, wide-eyed, do stars really sing? And he had answered, yes. Some of them hummed to themselves for billions of years. That boy had grinned like he had been told the universe's greatest secret. Jax smiled faintly at the memory. That to him was the real Earth, not just the violence in their history, but the wonder in their hearts. His thoughts were broken by the sound of footsteps. Light ones. The young analyst approached, the one with shimmering glass-like skin who had spoken earlier in defense of Earth. Commander, she said quietly. Jax looked up. Yes. She hesitated, then sat beside him. I just wanted you to know. I didn't vote out of pity. I voted because I believe in them. Even after everything. Jax nodded. That means more than you know. She glanced around the quiet chamber. Do you think they'll make it? If they're allowed in? Jax was silent for a moment. They'll struggle. They'll make mistakes. But I think they'll keep trying. And in the end, that's what matters. A soft chime rang out. Both of them stood. A door at the far end of the chamber opened. The council's presiding delegate, an ancient being of silken black threads and glowing eyes, emerged. The results were ready to be announced. The delegates returned to their seats. Drex rejoined without a word, his face as unreadable as ever. Jack stepped back into the center as the lights returned to full brightness. The presiding delegate floated to the podium. After careful review, the voice said, clear and emotionless, in full presentation of evidence, testimony, and cultural record. The chamber waited. The Galactic Concord has reached a decision regarding Earth's application for membership. The sphere above the chamber pulsed once. The image of Earth flickered briefly, then glowed brighter. All council votes have been counted and confirmed. With a majority decision, Earth is to be granted provisional membership, under observation, with full cultural exchange and monitored diplomatic channels. A pause. Final status to be reviewed after 10 Earth years. Jax felt his chest rise slowly. Relief moved through him like air returning to lungs that had forgotten how to breathe. They had done it. He didn't cheer. He didn't smile widely. But inside, something warm and steady bloomed. A hope that was no longer just his own. The presiding delegate added, full protocol to be outlined and delivered within the next cycle. Meeting adjourned. The lights dimmed slightly. Delegates began to rise, speaking quietly to one another. Some nodded toward Jax. Some still looked uncertain. And Drex? He stood, looked at Jax once, then turned and walked away. He said nothing. No final words. No threats. Just silence. Jax didn't follow him. There was no need. The decision had been made. As he stepped away from the center platform, the young analyst met him once more. You were right, she said. Sometimes, trying is enough. Jax looked to the image of Earth above them, still glowing gently in the dark. They've taken their first step, he said. The image of Earth still hovered above the center of the council chamber, suspended in the soft glow of the holographic sphere. It looked peaceful, clouds slowly drifting across oceans, sunlight touching the edges of the continents. To Commander Jax Voss, it was a reminder of everything that had just happened, of what was still to come. The chamber had mostly emptied. The final decision had been delivered. Earth would be given a chance, not full membership, not yet, but a beginning, a foot in the door. Provisional entry, with rules, supervision, and a long road ahead. But it was more than he had hoped for. It was a signal that the galaxy was willing to believe in humanity, even if just a little. Jack stood alone now, staring at the projection. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He was just present. The moment felt too big to rush. After months of planning, after hours of brutal footage, arguments, and silent judgment, the decision had come quietly, in a few simple words. Provisional membership granted. It was enough. Behind him, the sound of footsteps echoed again, slow, deliberate. He turned slightly as Counselor Drexler approached. His expression was calm, but tired. Not angry, not bitter. Just quiet. I don't agree with the decision, Drex said, but I won't fight it. Jax nodded. I didn't expect you to. There was a long silence between them. Not hostile, just thoughtful. They'll disappoint you, Drex said finally. You know that. Jax looked back at the planet above them. Maybe, but disappointment is part of growth. Drex studied him for a moment, then gave a small, sharp nod. You're more patient than I am. Maybe, Jax replied. Or maybe I just remember where we all started. Drex didn't argue. He simply walked away, his dark robes fading into the corridor's shadows. No threats. No lectures. Just a man accepting a loss for now. Jax let out a slow breath and turned back to the screen. He thought of all the people on Earth who had no idea what had just happened. People walking to work, students sitting in classrooms, families eating dinner. The decision made on the ship, far beyond their sky, would soon change everything. They wouldn't hear it in the wind or see it in the stars. But soon, they would know. Ambassadors would arrive. Messages would be sent. Technology, long forbidden, would be shared cautiously. And slowly, carefully, Earth would begin to take its first real steps into the galactic community. It wouldn't be easy. There would be mistakes, misunderstandings, fear, perhaps even failure. But there would also be learning, connection, progress. A soft sound broke his thoughts, a chime from the ship's communication system. A message had come in from the Concord's central hub. A schedule for Earth's first diplomatic meeting had been prepared. Jack smiled faintly and accepted the file. He would be the one to deliver it. Later that day, in his private quarters, Jack stood before a secure transmission terminal. A connection was opened to Earth's primary contact point, an orbital station that had served as a quiet link during Earth's quarantine. A human diplomat appeared on the screen, mid-50s, gray-haired, eyes sharp but kind. "Commander Voss," she said with a cautious smile. "Do we have an answer?" Jax nodded once. "Provisional membership. 10-year review. Cultural exchange permitted. Travel strictly monitored. You're not through the door yet, but it's open." The woman's eyes widened. She exhaled, stunned. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then she smiled, broad, tired, joyful. "You did it," she said softly. "No," Jax replied. "We did." She nodded. After the call ended, Jax sat at his desk and looked at the small glass token he kept near his console, a gift from the first human child he ever spoke to. It was a simple thing. A marble, blue and green, just like the planet they came from. He turned it over in his hand. So small, so fragile, so full of possibility. A soft hum filled the ship as it adjusted its course. The next destination, Earth. This time, not to observe. This time to meet. And so, with stars above and peace ahead, Earth began its journey into the galaxy, not as a threat, not as a legend of violence, but as a part of something greater. Not perfect, but trying.